Josh, up until the point that you can actually go and buy whatever it is, this is yours to use. We'll get it put into your name, and you can go and play with that as much as you wish.
So Rusty lent me this 22, and I have never shot an NRL22 match. We always talk about you don't need the fancy gear, you don't need any of that to actually shoot a match. So I've got this Crimson Trace. It's a 4-12 with a Plex reticle. It's what you'd have to go hunting. If you were doing general varminting, this is what you'd put on it. So I'm going to shoot this in a match. I'm going to use a basic setup that you might have laying at home, which is a fantastic option to get started. Most people getting around have a 22 that it's more of a farm gun. You have a bit of fun with it, you shoot some rabbits, you do some general hunting and a little bit of plinking. I'm going to try and shoot this in a competition. The gun I'll be using, it's a stock standard CZ452. There's nothing special about it. It's got a Harris bipod and that is it. Doesn't have a cheek riser or anything. So that's the gun, that's the optic. I'm gonna go pop this on the gun and we're gonna go out to the range. At the range, we have mounted the Crimson Trace. It's all up and sitting there. Now, just gotta work out my holdover points for this at the distances and give it a crack. Let's jump into it. So for this match, I've actually got a whole heap of notes and I'm gonna run you through the things that I think I did well and the things I didn't do well. So this was the first stage of the day and it was starting off shooting between the tyres and then moving to the top of the tyres. Earlier on in the day, I had tried to get my aiming points for these targets, and the first one, I actually had my wrong holdover point, so I was holding way too high. And I finally managed to settle on the further targets, funny enough, and got onto there. I was pretty solid on those ones. And then coming back in on the closer targets, I just could not find my holdover point at all. Then mandatory mag change, I actually remembered that one. I'm notorious for not remembering to do that. I do find I always push this rifle and trying to get it as far forward as possible, but this time I've actually placed the magazine on the bag and I'm now in a bit of a compromised position because it's not sitting as flat. And again, we are coming back into the closer targets and just not on whatsoever. Also, once I got to the top of the tyre, I was not stable on there at all. I was shaking all over the place, and rather than trying to adjust my position, I was trying to shoot on the sway. Finished that stage, 5 out of a possible 12 shots. Now this second stage started off with 2 offhand shots, and then you had to go around to each of the top of the tank trap. And everyone was joking around that I'd do really well with this offhand stage, and I think I got off lucky. Because that first shot actually hit the target post because I was not holding correctly for that target whatsoever. So once I got onto the tip of the tank trap, I actually got into some reasonably solid positions and my holdovers were good and just kept holding on where I was and ticking away. Have noticed that I am switching up my body position. So when I first started on the first tip, I was standing, and now I'm actually kneeling. I think the kneeling was a much more solid position. And back to the offhand stuff, which I am never good at, even with a really light rifle. That was definitely a fluke. Again, back on that tank trap. Luckily, this one is a very, very solid barricade, so you don't really have a lot of wobble in it itself. So if you can build yourself a solid position like I did, you end up being in a good spot. See, again, I'm standing for the last one instead of kneeling, and I probably should have knelt and made that work. But we got there. So 8 points for that one. Next up, we have a love-hate relationship. This was running up the rings of the ladder, and you had a close target and a far target. And starting off there, I adjusted my magnification, and that will probably prove to be a bit of a mistake. This is a second focal plane optic, and I've been running on the same magnification all day. And not an ideal way to start the stage. I had not pushed the magazine all the way in, so first shot hasn't even gone off, and I have a 30-second hang fire. Starting to get close to it, I settle myself into a better position than I originally had, so that when the time is ready, I'm good to go. Not ideal, didn't quite have the holdover point for the close target, but bang on for the far target. Far target, because of the Plex reticle, I was actually holding just between where the reticle goes from really thin to a bit thicker. That was my holdover point in the center of the target, and it was on point. was a bit unlucky there to get the post. I think I was just a tiny bit too low. Again, at this point in time, because I know I've got a 30-second hang fire, I was starting to rush my shots a little bit and not put the time that I probably should have into getting consistent hits and following up and making sure I knew where my shots were going. And after all that, I ended up with a 3 out of 10, so definitely not ideal. Alright, next stage, a moment like this. This was a far target at 98 yards and a KYL rack at 35. You had to engage the far target first and then run your way down the KYL rack. I couldn't quite remember where my holdover point was to start with, so I was playing a bit of games of guessing where it was. I managed to get on the second shot, that was pretty lucky. And I wasn't in a super good position, so I was actually a little bit unsteady, which is not what you want when you're shooting at a KYL. And then this is where I got away with this, but I was supposed to move position, so I'm now supposed to be shooting off the top of that seesaw. But the spotter is still calling impact, so I haven't realized that I'm not doing anything right, so I've just kept going, run down the KYL rack, and off we go. So off that one, KYL being unsteady, I got a 7 out of 10. I'm pretty happy with that one. Now, this last stage was a fun one. You had 2 target frames at 90 yards, and you had 1 target frame in the middle of them at 54 yards. On each of the left and the right target frame in the distance, there was 2 different targets. This was right on the edge of the reticle, and I was aiming the thick part of the reticle at the top of the target frame, so I had no left to right reference of where I was actually aiming for. And it was in a fun sequence, so you had to shoot the left small target, and then the right small target, then the center, and then the left large, and then the right large. So you were always constantly moving a fair distance between each shot. So I'm getting on at distance at that small target was proving very, very challenging, but I was able to consistently get onto the large target. I had my hold for that. Pretty well sorted. You can see me here having a good think about what I actually need to do next. In the center point, luckily the center going between the distance, I had already shot that one earlier and I'd written my notes and I knew exactly where I was shooting for that. And shooting out at that little target, I was constantly chasing off the left edge or the right edge, just skimming either side. So after all of that, managed to get a 6 out of 10. You can hear me asking there, they were just skimming off of the edge of the target. So considering the distance and the fact that I couldn't actually see the target in the reticle, I'll take that. That was a very good score. That's the match done and dusted, all wrapped up and done. I've got some thoughts on the optic, the setup, all the bits and pieces, but it is way too warm here, so let's jump back to the studio. So that is a range day done. I'm back in the studio now. I've got a few takeaways. First off, it was different shooting with the Crimson Trace. The reticle made it challenging, but not impossible. I got off more impacts than I thought I would, and with some time spent behind it, I think I could actually do quite well with that. But that's not where I want to end up. I want to push this further and want to start to try and get to the pointy end of the field. So great for hunting, not so good for competition. We'll put that one to the side and tease what's coming next. We have this from Discovery Optics. It's a 5-25 by 56. It has dialable turrets, has a Christmas tree reticle, and it has an adjustable parallax. So that will go on the rifle. I'll take that to the range and zero it in. One other thing that I know I need is data. So typically people run these data cards on their arms, you can run them on the gun, whatever. I'm gonna run it on the gun. So this will live on this side. This will be Velcroed off here, and that will tell me all the bits of information I need for each stage. I know there was a few stages where I got a bit lost, didn't quite know what I was doing. Being able to reference this and follow your order, follow what you've written down will be very useful. So I'm gonna take this to the next match. Check it out in the next video.